Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I am here with Elle. My name is Sarah. If you don't know me, this is Shakespeare with Sarah. And today we are looking at Goneril from King Lear. What do we do with this character? She can look like a cartoon villain. How do you make her feel three-dimensional? How do you justify some of the choices that she made? How do you deal with her layered approach to, well, sometimes what seems like lying? What do we do with these things, and how do we handle perfectionism? We might also talk about today as well. So I'm going to bring Elle in here. Let me say hello to Elle, and thank you very much for joining me, Elle, and being vulnerable with your work. I'm not going to put you like too much on the spot today. I think today we'll do a little bit more kind of character picking apart, but thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay! So we were just talking about the very first section of text that Goneril has, and I reckon let's read through that first and pick her apart a bit because, well, actually, I mean, I'll say what I was just saying to you before, which is sometimes with these characters, I think I don't have answers necessarily. I think sometimes people think, that we'll have all the answers, but I think some characters we have to make these choices. We have to fill in the gaps sometimes and know that it was performed at in a different time where probably the tolerance for a cartoon villain was higher, this kind of evil queen thing. And that's something I don't know if I would necessarily put Goneril in that bucket, but she's going towards that kind of evil queen idea. And I'll mention this, and so for people watching, I'll drop it in the description. There's a great podcast called The Hurly Burly Show, and or no, the Hurly Burly Shakespeare Show, I should be specific. They are fabulous. They did a whole episode on evil queens and the role of evil queens and how that kind of came about. And I think oh, sorry, I'll just
Sorry.
Oh, so thanks for drop that in the chat. That can be a really useful thing to look at just in terms of thinking about that cartoon stuff. And I beg your pardon, I didn't realize your name is pronounced Ellie, so I beg your pardon,
No
Ellie.
problem. It's spelled anyway.
Thank you for correcting me. So
Sarah,
I mean, it's good for people to know.
Can you say again the title of the show that you just mentioned? The
Yes,
cartoon villain.
yes, absolutely. Lee Burley Shakespeare Show, and they are so fun to listen to. They have a good sense of humor, and they pick apart all different parts of Shakespeare. I highly recommend it. It is one of my favorite Shakespeare podcasts. They have a website where you can find all the podcasts, but also they're on Apple Podcasts and that kind of thing as well. So I would definitely look at that. The Evil Queens episode I found really interesting to think about kind of what was going on in around them in terms of I don't know if Goneril would really fit into that bucket, but she's sort of on that edge. So thinking about that that people have that tolerance for that kind of maybe slightly more cartoony thing back in when they were watching it, and that we're having to find stuff that finding tiny details to make sure that we feel real. So with all those things in mind, let's jump into a bit of reading and kind of warm us into this character for a second. The very first thing that she says. So I'll give you a little cue, and then are you happy to read this section for us, Ellie?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Goneril, our eldest born, speak first.
Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter, dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty, beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life, with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child e'er loved or father found, a love that makes breath poor and speech unable. Beyond all manner of so much, I love you.
Yeah, okay. So my first thought about this is I recently just taught a class on irony to my membership, which, just in case people are like, oh, you have classes, wonderful. It's called Shakespeare Mastery Academy, plug, plug, plug. Anyway, I was teaching this about irony. We might think of this as irony, but like you said, it's this moment where it's not a direct lie, but it's sort of not really true. And this is exactly how Patsy Rodenberg, who's the vocal coach you might have come across, um, that's basically how she sums up irony is if it it's not a direct lie, but it can't possibly be true, think irony. And how do we play irony? Irony really, and it's very hard for people to understand these days because we often go straight to sarcasm, and it's not sarcasm because sarcasm is that kind of, it's really obvious that they don't
Mm.
mean it, and of course we don't want that. That's not what we're going for. Irony pops up. It's much more subtle. It's the way that I think about it is holding multiple possibilities in ourselves at once, which is a great practice for actors to go through. Of I'm not lying about this. It's kind of true. It's kind of not true. I'm just keeping the conversation open, and it usually pops up when people are seeking truth to power, or where they know that the person that's listening won't be able to receive the truth. So they have to kind of approach things in a different way. So it's people being very, very clever about how they answer questions a lot of time, or how they deal with situations. So one of the things I find useful with this is to explore both directions, one at a time. So let's do a run through. I want you to speak it through this time, and I want you to say it like it's 100% true, like you really, really mean it, and just like go a little bit over the top of it, and then we'll feel out what that feels like. I'll give you the cue again. Goneril, our eldest born, speak first.
Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter, dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty, beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child e'er loved or father found, love that makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all manner of so much I love you.
And it probably doesn't feel right at all, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
feel really
it's
like, that
so
feels like
funny.
Cordelia, right? It's like
Yes, and
really earnest.
I'm just tapping into, some of my, it's lucky that I can say I'm thinking of my own father in real life. I have a wonderful, supportive dad.
Ah, right.
So, speaking that is a little easy to think of, but definitely not, didn't feel right for the
Oh,
character.
God.
Absolutely.
Yes,
There's
he's certainly
there's a
not
yeah,
excited.
obviously anyone familiar knows that there's motive involved, and
Yeah,
whether or not she's
absolutely.
keyed into what's the follow-up. She knows that it's attached to, land and money
Yeah.
is yeah.
Yeah, and actually, this is probably another thing that's probably useful to talk about is, for me in Shakespeare, one of the things I find useful as a guideline is to assume they know nothing about the future and that they've planned nothing. And like they're not. That's a bit of a generalization. Probably what I would say a little bit more clearly is assume that they're deciding things on the spot. It's so immediate. And I think this is another element that people don't really talk about enough in terms of this idea of acting on the line, which you might have come across as. But most of the time, when people say, "Oh, you need to act on the line with Shakespeare," what they mean is you need to walk and talk. You need to be able to move and speak at the same time. It's very holistic. It's very ingrained and in sync. But to me, even beyond that, acting on the line means I'm coming up with this on the spot. And it means I'm thinking of it now, I'm deciding it now, I'm realizing it now, I'm making decisions now. And you will occasionally have schemers, and the schemers will sometimes have the bigger picture in mind, like an Iago, he might be one that breaks that kind of rule. But a lot of the time, it's more effective to play it like I have no idea what's going on, and it's all
Yeah,
happening
yeah.
to me right now. It just, to me, it helps. It's always it also helps the audience process, right? Because they're like, they have to understand what's going on. They will usually have less knowledge of the text than you. So if you can play in the moment, oh, that's a surprise. They can go, oh, this is new information. Great. They are with you. So it helps the audience as well as it helps the dynamism, the experience of it being very dynamic for you. So that's the kind of a separate thing. But I would say, like, explore that. That's what I would put on your homework list as well for this character. Oh, and I didn't introduce this before. So Ellie's actually playing Goneril very soon. So we're exploring it because she's going to be playing it a bit later in the year. So that's what I put on your list is as you go through rehearsals, when you're saying the line, think about when can I show new information popping up? I basically come back to decisions and discoveries. They are it's our gold, right? So where we can kind of show the audience, oh, I've made a decision or this is new, it's the discovery in some way. It helps us, it helps the audience. So kind of track them and decide how much you want to play them. That often helps as well. And this will probably help with Edmund, because that was the other thing we were saying. It's tricky. When do we decide about Edmund being wonderful? So anyway, looping us back, thanks for letting me kind of talk through that. Loop us back. Let's go back to this. Now, what I want you to do this time, I want you to read this through again, and I want you to just lean really far into the sarcasm, the obvious lie, and just kind of be kind of contemptuous about it, all the way in the other direction. Okay. Goneril, our eldest born, speak first.
Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter, dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty, beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child e'er loved, father found, a love that makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all manner of so much, I love you.
It's quite funny, isn't it? And I can imagine
Yeah,
some people playing it like this, but it's not going to probably help us, and it
right.
doesn't feel truthful. And of course, he's not going to that's not going to win Lear over. That he's going to be like, "What? Get out of here!" So that doesn't work either.
Exactly.
So what I
It
want you
is
to do now, so
interesting. Oh, sorry, I'm over.
no, please go ahead. No, yeah.
I was just going to say it's interesting that obviously that's too extreme, but it feels more correct than the really earnest.
Right. So this, I think, what's useful about this exercise is starting to tap into the feeling of this is how I feel, but I can't show that. And because what often happens when we know that it's kind of like, I mean two things at once, but sometimes we don't have that connection to feeling and becomes very flat, it becomes dead. So what is essential in this kind of practice of any time, and this is probably when she's the most like this. She does become more, I think, more and more direct as time goes on. But in these early stages, it shows us a lot about how careful she has to be. But for you as an actor, you have to tap into the depth of feeling that's underneath it, which is like, you suck, Dad. But I'm going to keep a lid on that. So,
Exactly.
so I put that on your homework list too. Go deep into the contempt for a while, and then dial it back. And you'll feel that anyway from working on the later scenes. You'll be like, oh, this is what it feels like. So just remembering that at the beginning she's feeling all that, but it's underneath.
Absolutely.
So the next stages of this kind of practice is reading through it again. So as people will see, this is, for me, I think it's one of the most useful things we can do is exploring a text over and over in different ways. And this time, what I want you to do is for every line, I want you to choose one or the other, serious or the contemptuous.
Ooh,
Like that I mean it,
okay.
or I'm faking it. Yeah. And just take your time, like you can intuitively do it, don't overthink it, but just, if you need to take a moment in between lines, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Goneril, our eldest born, speak first.
Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty, beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child e'er loved or father found, a love that makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all manner of so much, I love you.
Great. Okay. Now, final run through, and then I'll get your thoughts on it. I want you to now speak through it, and I want you to see if you can hold both possibilities within you. So before you speak, you tap into that feeling of the contempt, and then you put a lid on it, And you speak lightly over the top of it and keep a lid on the simmering underneath. So you're the simmering pot. And I would say this time, see if you can go fairly with a bit of flow, like let it flow, don't overthink it, let it kind of tumble out as you go. Yeah. All right. Goneril, our eldest born, speak first.
Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, liberty, beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child e'er loved or father found, a love that makes breath poor and speech unable. Beyond all manner of so much, I love you.
Actually, I'm going to get you to do it one more time. I'm going to push you further in this direction. I want it to be hard for you to keep a lid on it because
Yeah, okay.
he's so full of garbage, and you really, I'm like, want to be like, Dad, but you're very well, you're practiced in this, but this is probably next level. Let's assume that this is next level for what Dad normally does. He's really parading it to us this time. He's really turned it up a notch. Oh, Dad, thanks. And you I want you to try and stay very still in your body and your head and probably in your face. You might even have like a little bit of a smile, jack on your
Yeah.
face. Keep that stillness in you as you go through. And I want you to see if you can even go a little further. Sorry, not a little further, a little faster. Let it flow even a little more. I know you've got a lot of detail in the text, which is great. I want you just for this time, don't worry about detail in the text. Just let it kind of tumble, let it come out. Okay, very still. And you know what? I'm gonna take it a little bit back further to give you a bit of a lead up. I'm gonna go from here. Tell me, my daughter, since now we will divest us both of rule, interests of territory, cares of state, which of you shall we say doth love us most? That we our largest bounty may extend, when nature doth with merit challenge. Goneril, our eldest born, speak first.
Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than
I want you to say
eyesight.
even more still. Sorry, Ellie, to
Okay.
interrupt you.
Oh, right. I forgot about the stillness.
Yeah,
Okay.
I want
Okay.
you to say,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to go back again because I think this is a
Sure.
really interesting,
Yes.
and even just the lines here. See how he chucked her name in at the end of the line. For me, this is like, you had no idea this was coming. You're having to
Yeah.
think on your feet, and you're going to have to, I mean, we've actually got a half line here, so there is a little bit of a gap there before you speak. But when I say Goneril, it's like, oh, it's me, I'm up, breathe,
Uh-huh.
and then I can't show anything. That makes sense.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, let's see. All right. Tell me, my daughters, since now we will divest us both of rule, interest of territory, cares, which of you shall we say doth love us most? That we our largest bounty may extend, where nature doth with merit challenge. Goneril, our eldest born, speak first.
Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty, beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life, with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child e'er loved or father found, a love that makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all manner of so much I love you.
Great. Yeah. So what are you finding out of that? Actually, I'll drop out of screen share for a second.
Yeah, I in general, I just can't believe how different, which of course
Yeah.
they're different, you're asking me for totally different readings, but it's so hugely changed to,
Yeah.
and it's difficult to be still. And I
Yeah.
had the little, and again, we've said I'm very early in this kind of thinking through
Yes.
stages of this character,
Yes.
but the little thinking I've done, it does seem the maybe natural choice that she would be very stiff and very unmoving in that way. So I think that
Mm,
feels right, but it's difficult to do it as a person. As you can see me speaking, this is how I'm moving around.
Right. Yeah.
For her to
It's
have that, it's like a constant simmering anger. And I
mm,
think that is the piece too, when you were speaking earlier about her sort of cartoonish villain. As soon as I was cast, that sort of shifted for me to say
mm,
that's probably how I viewed her, until I had to kind of tap into what is there in her to sympathize with or understand about where she comes from and why is she the way that she is. And I think that kind of
mm,
that feminine rage is a really, I don't mean to say easy, but it's a very accessible, real,
mm.
believable, not attaching too much backstory, but assuming that Lear has been awful her whole life since she was a baby. She's,
Yeah.
anyway, so having that sort of constant, as you've worded it, keeping a lid on and having to sort of contain this always simmering anger and rage, which comes out with Albany, of course, as well, is really
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's it's probably useful to talk about like how do we handle this thing about backstory in Shakespeare? Because I think I'm often like, because I think people can overdo it with backstory sometimes. A lot of the time, I think we overdo it with backstory. However, my kind of rule of thumb with it is get the stuff that's relationship based. Don't create random things. Like create the stuff that's relationship based that you need that you can pull on. And it's probably more useful to have specific memories of things that he did. But it's very tricky, especially because this play, I mean, as with many of the plays, we do jump into the action, and there has been years and years and years of backstory there. Another, you might have already seen it, but another resource that I have found really interesting was there's an interview on YouTube from the actors who played the sisters in the National Theatre production from a few years ago. I believe it was National Theatre. Um, and it's oh, I want to say Kate Ferguson, but I don't think that's right. And Anna, I can't even remember their names. I'm so sorry, but I'll link that in the description.
I think
I'll send these.
sounds right. I think it is Kate. Anyway, well, yeah, we'll.
Yeah,
I have
yeah,
watched her interview.
yeah, yeah. So what did you say you watched that interview?
I did.
Mm, yeah, I think they had some really good insights, and I do think it's really useful to dig into some of what other actors have found because it can be really helpful to make those choices. And of course, it's the kind of thing because you're going into production, you're going to have to discuss with the director. So I wouldn't necessarily create a lot in advance, but there will definitely need to be things. And I think that's really great that you kind of tapping into that physicality because this is probably going to be some of the bigger picture stuff for you is learning how to do the the inner strength of her. What does it feel like to do that stillness, right? How can I have that rage underneath and do less and not be letting it spill out, especially when we're in production? Sometimes we still have to be audible and visible, right? So we can't just be like, I'm given nothing. We have to be energized, but without kind of going over the top. So I wonder if that might be worth us exploring for a minute. Are you happy to do a little bit of that stuff? Like
Yeah,
a bit of
absolutely.
physicality and yeah. Great. Why would you be happy to look at her monologue for a sec, the by day and night he wrongs me, and do a little bit of that to get into some physicality? It's just a handy chunk of text. Let me just bring it up on here as well. Okay, sorry. I might even, yeah, I'll share it on here for a sec. So by day and night he wrongs me. Oswald. Yes. Okay. So maybe let's do like a rough read through of it for a sec, and then I might get you up and we can kind of find some physical things, and you can do a bit of playing around. But just to kind of get the words out first, are you happy to just kind of do a cold read? Putting
And
you on the
before
spot.
I have to intellectualize before I just jump in,
Mm,
because in
yep.
my mind, the areas that she can be a little more explosive. She's not in front of.
Mm,
I mean, it's with she. Oswald, and maybe not. Maybe that's the, maybe she never loses her cool. But I think it'll be interesting to say
Oh,
there are moments when she's
yeah,
and moments when she can, you know.
definitely. Yes, definitely. Yes, 100%. Yeah. So please, yes, sorry. I guess I think that's a good point. Um, let let's lean into the active side of her for a minute, because probably this is going to be part of the character development as well. Is what does it feel like when she does let go?
Yeah.
What does it feel like when she does put a lid on it? And finding it will obviously be, it will be a spectrum and it will be a journey, but it will probably be useful for you to have these 2 points of like, here's the extreme. I'm kind of, holding it together. And then here's my kind of letting rip. And to be honest, she kind of let rip even more in a different way later on as well. But uh, now I'm thinking about whether it's useful to. No, let's stick with this for a bit, because just because it's a bigger section of text, I think it's handy for us. Let's just even let's just do this first bit. I just want to be kind of yeah. Sorry, I'm thinking aloud. I'm thinking
Oh
aloud. Yeah,
no,
let's stick with
absolutely.
a bit. It's just useful to have a chunk, rather than back and forth lines dialogue. So, yeah, can you cold read just this bit for us?
By day and night he wrongs me. Every hour he flashes into one gross crime or other that sets us all at odds. I'll not endure it. His nights grow riotous, and himself upbraids us on every trifle. When he returns from hunting, I will not speak with him. Say I am sick. If you come slack of former services, you shall do well. The fault of it, I'll answer.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'm going to give you a technique thing that can help as well. Can you read through it again? And I want you to make the last word or words of each verse line the most exciting. Now, in a line like this, where you've got it and us,
Mhm.
you're probably going to hit more like endure it, upbraids us, and every hour you might want to hit both. That makes sense. So just kind of
Yeah.
any way that you can make those
Okay.
words exciting at the end. Yeah. Okay.
By day and night he wrongs me. Every hour he flashes into one gross crime or other that sets us all at odds. I'll not endure it. His nights grow riotous, and himself upbraids us on every trifle. When he returns from hunting, I will not speak with him. Say I am sick. If you come slack of former services, you shall do well. The fault of it, I'll answer.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Yeah, cool. That just gives us kind of like these things to hang it on. All right, great. I'm going to jump out of that for a sec. Do you have room to stand up for a bit?
Yep, let's see if I can, we'll see how I can pull this off with neither. But yes, I do.
Okay, cool. All right. And don't worry too much. If we can't see you all the time, doesn't matter. It's
Okay, sure.
because I can hear you. All right. So let's kind of get you into a little bit of character stuff for a sec. So I'll get you to do you have a tiny bit of space to walk, even if I can't see you on screen? Yeah. So I want you to I'm going to guide you through this. I'm just going to kind of speak while you move. So just if you can hear me okay, then just move around. You don't even really need to look at me. Yeah, crank me up a bit. Okay, cool. So just start moving around the room as you, just as Ellie, walking around just neutral for a sec. And then we're going to drop in a second to this kind of angry, heightened Goneril stage. So thinking about this frustration, calling to mind the everything that's been happening. Her dad's bringing all these knights, they're making a big old mess, and he's being ridiculous. He's probably starting to lose it a little bit, and you're so frustrated about the whole situation. You thought that you were going to be stepping into power soon, and he is just making things worse and worse and worse. And of course, it's hard to speak up to him because he is a volatile man. And previously, you probably wouldn't have spoken up, but now you have been given this power, and actually, you have more things at your disposal. to work with. So you're going to find that strength. Now, while you're walking around, just kind of track in your body where you're feeling tension particularly, and just keep that. Actually, even exaggerate it slightly. So if you have a feeling that you want to, squeeze your fists, or if you're rolling your shoulders back and your shoulder blades feel really locked, that's great. Just track it through your body for a sec. So you've got a little map, and exaggerate it even a little further so it's really, really obvious. And also, if you can, figure out where that emotional center is. Where are you feeling the emotion strongly? And let that build in that spot. Maybe you sort of think of it as a color, or it could even just be tension again, thinking of it spreading a little bit, getting brighter or darker or stronger in some way. Fabulous. Great. And you've already picked your pace, which is great. So you feel like she's a fast walker when she's mad. Awesome. Great. Okay. And another thing that just to shape the character slightly in this state is to think about your leading points. What is the first point of her body that would enter a room? And we can even make her a bit cartoonish for a second. So just make it a little extreme for a sec. If you're thinking about what is the point that would enter the room first, would it be the nose, the knees, the forehead, the chest? Just explore for a second in this state. And this is her sort of strong state, even though she's a little flustered right now. This is her stronger version of herself. Right. And yeah, make it a little exaggerated so you can track it. Fantastic. Okay, great. And then when you're ready, I want you to stop in the space. And I want you to see how she stands when she comes to a stop. So come to a stop somewhere and just track for a minute how she's standing in this state. Right. See if you can keep the state within you, keep the energy within you. Think about the tensing of muscles when you need it. That contraction of muscles will help you, and let that energy course through your body. And when you're ready, if you can, I'd love you to pick up your script, or I can pop it up on the screen and you can have a go at this little section of text again.
Walk into it.
Yeah, walk into it, yeah.
By day and night, he wrongs me. Every hour she flashes into one gross crime or other that sets us all at odds. I'll not endure it. When he returns from hunting, I will not speak with him. Say I am sick. If you come slack of former services, you shall do well. The fault of it, I'll answer.
Fabulous. Okay, now let's dial it back. So I'm going to just keep you in the Goneril space for a sec, and just go walking again for a minute. I'm going to guide you into the early Goneril, which is the put a lid on it thing. So take a little walk around the room, and I'll guide you through that. We'll find a little bit of Goneril simmering rage. Yeah, fabulous. Thank you for thinking ahead. Cool. So walking around the room now. What I want you to do actually first is I want you to go back into that mad Goneril just for a second. And I want you to get back, see if you can drop straight back into it, thinking about the body mapping that we just did. Where are the muscle tension? Great. Now I want you to think about you're about to enter a room, and dad is going to pull some nonsense again. And you are going to have to fake it. And you just are so over it. And you're just holding on to the end of his reign. And so you are going to now take a moment, you're going to find a place to stop, and you're going to breathe to calm yourself, but you're not really going to get calm. In fact, the breathing is going to feed that energy, really. It's going to be more still. Yeah, that's it. So take some really deep breaths. And I want you to really actively have that narrative in your mind of keep it together, don't lose your stuff. You're going to nice in front of dad, in front of everybody. He's going to be doing his usual thing. And you're really going to calm yourself. And in this state, I want you to think about where is that tension still? There'll probably still be somewhere in the body that feels tense. Or that emotional center, is it in the same place right now? Has it changed to a different sort of area in the body? Where is that feeling? And I want you to make sure that there's still a lot of energy flowing through you in this state. Now, that's a broad idea, but you could create that energy through the contraction of muscles, through breath, and even just intention, thinking about having that energy in your body. But I want you to think about, I am not going to show any of it. I've got a huge amount of energy in my body, but I'm going to keep myself extremely still. I want you to think, so at the moment, I would say you're probably a 3 or 4 out of 10. I want you to now see if you can dial that back even to a 2. So really, I'm not going to show any of this. I'm going to be extremely kept together and very still. Yep. Yep. Good. Yep. Let's say that's probably like a 2 to 3. I'm going to see if you can go even more down to a 1 to 2. So you will be extremely still. And one of the ways I find this very useful to think about is to imagine that you are in a close-up, and it's an ultra close-up of just one eye. And you are being filmed of just that one eye. And you have to be so careful and so still, because if you move too much, or even blink too much, it will be very hard for somebody to watch this recording of your beautiful eyeball that's going to communicate all this information to us. All that energy is going to be coming out through the eyes. Okay. And take a moment now in this state. I want you to now walk in this state. Let's see how this walks. It's going to be probably rigid, maybe, or yeah, controlled. Lovely. Cool. Just take a moment and walk around. And when you're ready, you can go and pick up your script. Stay in character as you pick up the script. Imagine that you're just picking up an object as part of her day. And you can pick up your script, and we'll do, and just walk around for a minute. And when you're ready, you can come to a stop again, and you're going to read out that section of text that we had before.
Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty. Beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, honor, beauty, as much as child e'er loved or father fond. A love that makes breath poor and speech unable. Beyond all manner of so much, I love you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, come and tell me what was useful out of that. Was there anything that you found in there?
Absolutely. Woo, that was huge. Both
Great,
of
yeah.
us. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a person who cries when I'm angry, but it felt like that was going to happen when I was doing
Right.
not contained the rage and my sweater kept falling down, and I'm like,
Oh, I like that. Maybe
yeah,
that's a thing. Yeah.
exactly. Something's out of place.
Yeah. And you know, the disheveledness. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I like that.
And then the eye, the the surveillance, and I think it was that same interview that we mentioned. It might have been this production that they were talking about it, but your descriptions were making me picture just a room full of people, and it's supposed to be, I think that
Yeah.
production had a huge ensemble,
Yes. Oh,
which
yes, they did. Yeah, they had a
yeah,
huge thing at the beginning. I really like that. Yeah.
yeah. So and obviously, even if we don't have that, we'll have an audience who can
Yeah, you imagine it. Yeah, that's
that
the
is
idea.
Lear is asking them, they're not in a private room, the four of, it's a production, so having that in mind, I am performing not just for my father, but for these hundreds of soldiers, and for the public who's out to see. That just makes it so much more, I don't know, maddening that it's being asked in the first place, that I have to pretend that this is a normal
Right? Yeah, this is normal. Yeah. Thanks,
yeah,
Dad.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Way
it
that
probably
families
is.
behave.
Yeah, here we go again.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was really amazingly helpful.
That's so cool. Okay, great. I mean, so yeah, map it, keep it. And I would say probably, so what I would put on your homework list as well is to explore also the late Goneril, who I think she just kind of loses it, like there's, I mean, and I don't even know if I could tell you where the tipping point is. I would probably have to just read through it again and probably watch it again, explore it again to find that tipping point. But I think you will find, and maybe this might be in your journey during rehearsals as well, is that there's a point where she she's not holding back anymore. She's she's kept the lid on too long, and the pot's boiling over, and that is the sense of this. And it's I I don't think that there's a right or wrong way to do that physically, and that you may find that towards the end it's maybe it's a mishmash, of sometimes being very still and then sometimes lots of movement. Like you'll find what works. But that's what I would say is like pull a bit of text from the end of the play and do this as well. Exploring when she really goes into her primal nature, very, very primal towards the end. They're all very primal towards the end. So that animalistic thing. And see, so then you've got this kind of journey of Goneril from I can keep it together to I'm not really keeping it together to it's gone, it's lost. And then I think as well, because you mentioned about like it's so hard to just to think about like what is that shift, that why is she interested in Edmund? What happens there? I think it all makes sense in the context of someone who can no longer control herself and has given into her animal self completely. And that Albany or whatever you want to call him is very he's represents reason and kowtowing, like the person that just is going to go along, which was probably really useful for a while to have this guy
Yes,
that was like, yes, and he's going to do what dad says, but also he's going to do what I say until, suddenly what dad says and what I say are different. And oh no, he's actually siding with dad more than he's siding with me. That is not what I expected. This is not aligning. And he doesn't know how to take action. He's not active.
yes.
He's not animalistic. He's reason based, and he's
Yeah, I was thinking of it almost
reasonable.
as a foil of like Hamlet and Laertes, or
Mm.
Hamlet is thinking about doing things and and then versus taking action and doing it, that Goneril would admire a direct Edmund makes a decision and is a
Right. Yeah. Yes. I think that's it. And I think it is it's a sexual thing. I think
yeah, okay,
it's I think it's easier. I mean, and you'll find, I think, as you go through rehearsal, it will all make sense. But I think it's sort of, if you think of her as animal towards the end, it makes sense that she has no interest in this person that's reasonable and rational, and that she's interested in someone who is like her, that Edmund is animalistic too, and that she recognizes that, and she recognizes that he, if anything, can show her how to be that. Maybe that's part of the interest as well, as like lead me to the animal place, so that he's the teacher of the animal nature, and that's what she thinks she needs as well. I think it's I mean, and depending on what you feel is useful, you might decide, okay, she's kind of just fallen into this animal place almost accidentally as a result of things happening, or you might go, she she thinks that that's what's going to be the thing that will serve her. Maybe she makes an active choice of, I have to give in to this part of myself because that's the only thing that will save me and lead me through this life, this situation that we're in. So I'm in a Lady Macbeth style moment, giving that we never see, giving into this, right? So yeah, but there's possibilities. There's so many possibilities, and I don't think that there are necessarily there are many wrong answers, particularly. I think which is great, right? So it frees us, and because I think a lot of the time we are afraid of getting it wrong. And you talked about the perfectionism and stuff, and I think it's good when you're in production because you've got a director who can be like, well, I think we want to go in this direction. But I think also giving yourself the permission to explore it and see what
Yeah.
you think is interesting, what you want to bring to it. Because I really don't think that there's much that you can do apart from making her two-dimensional, you know, making her just kind of like, I love being evil. Maybe she does love being evil by the end, but it's not that. I think it's just that she's living in the animal place, and that's what makes sense, and that's what justifies it, right? Because animals don't, you know, question why they're doing these things. So
Absolutely.
it all makes sense, and it's human. It's very, very human and primal. Yeah, so we were going to do scene work as well, but we run out of
No,
time. So
yeah, absolutely. And
there's
the physical, I
so
feel
many
like
things.
that exercise will be more helpful than anything else we would have done.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad
Yeah.
we
And you will do like the scene work stuff, the relationship based stuff. It will all become clear anyway. The more that you run it, and depending on what the other actors bring to the table, it will be clear anyway. But I think that keep exploring. And I'd encourage you, like, so this is probably what I put on the homework list as well, like keep pulling out little bits of text, just little
yeah, and
sections that
go
you're
over
interested in,
and
and
over.
really, yeah, go over and over in different ways. And this is what I'm you know, I mentioned this to someone the other day as well, but I think this is what most actors don't do, is they don't explore those possibilities. They don't explore, like, what if I fully go into this and see what's there? What if I now fully go into this, like we did with the irony stuff? Most people are kind of just like, I think it's this, and they just go for it, and then they try and get
Hey,
that
that's
good,
what I would normally do, is make the decisions ahead of
right?
time because, you know,
Yeah.
mhm.
So don't make it ahead of time. Do play, you know, especially because you're not in rehearsal yet. Play around with the text, see what's there, and even push it in a direction that you think it shouldn't go. Like, do the opposite of what you think is actually good. And often you will find this really cool stuff where you're like, oh, I didn't expect that. You know, like if you even that and do the stuff that you are uncomfortable with, or that you think is going to be the cartoon villain. Go into the cartoon villain for a while, because I think sometimes we're so afraid that it's going to be the cartoon villain that we end up running in the opposite direction, and then it's not fully
It's too
rounded.
subtle.
Then yeah, it's too subtle, or it's just missing. Yeah, maybe it's missing the darkness because you never really invest. So pull a bit of text from the end and just like be the evil queen for a minute, or like be the animal. Animal work, I think, will help you if you've ever done any animal work. I think it's like choose the animal that you think she is, and again with the animal work, I would say like do multiple animals. You know, multiple animals. She'll probably have different animals for the different stages, but even I would say explore her later stage and do multiple, try different animals even for that last stage, and see, you know, is she a cheetah, is she a, oh, there's a reference about tigers, maybe she's a tiger. Anyway, you know, so play with different, but maybe she's not, maybe she's like a lemur or something, you know. Like, I'm thinking about like sometimes you get like vicious animals that are like really tiny, and you don't expect
Yeah,
it, and then they're like,
exactly. Exactly. You think you can, cuddle it or something.
they like
Yeah,
attack
yeah.
you. Maybe she's like an opossum or something, so like just creepy thing. Yeah, so you never know, because I think we always, and probably we want to be, I think one of the danger areas is that because it's sexual, people want to be sexy.
Yeah.
And so then they're kind of like going around the thing, you know, and it ends up just being kind of indulgent, because they're like, it's actually, that's the show of like, look how sexy I am. It's probably going to be grosser than you think. So I would go to a gross place with it. So these are, yeah, some of the things. I will write some of this stuff down, and I'll write you some notes, and send you some things,
Thank you
but
so
you
much.
probably got it in your head. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I have more than I planned to work with now. So thank you so much. This was
Exciting.
wonderful.
Oh, so exciting. Thanks for joining me. This is so much fun. I love doing this stuff. I want to get.
It's fun.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll sign off. I'll let our viewers go. So people that are watching, there are links in the description for these things. And also I've got my group coaching program coming up soon where we do it's an intensive. So it's a 10-week program where we are doing 2.5 hours every week. We go deep in Shakespeare, and then I also show you how to apply the Shakespearean techniques to contemporary stuff as well. So it's really designed to be very, very practical. And that's why I called it Practical Shakespeare, because I'm all about the practicality and getting our practice happening. So I'll sign off there. So thanks for joining us, YouTube people, and stay on the line. Ellie, I'll say a proper goodbye to you. But bye, our viewers.